I feel like I've lost connection with my usual, you know, practices that keep me feeling, you know, fairly buoyant. I've just kind of spun out of orbit and need to get back, need to get connected. And the breath and Paul are two obvious things.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of a lot going on in the world, isn't there? Someone's got some guitar music in the background, which is sounding a bit kind of odd. Just, it's incredible, the world at the moment. This kind of Zoom stuff has been fantastic because a lot of the people here were part of the Embodied conference. Thumbs up who was part, or make a wave, part of the Embodied conference. And it was actually just an amazing way for people to be connected and to have something in common of just kind of, I suppose at the end of the day, really just getting through whatever we have to get through. And it felt like we were doing it a bit more together. I'll tell you one of the things that really got me with the conference is that it kind of just allowed me to be more of me again, you know, and I think we all had that struggle. In one of the talks, the panel were asked, you know, what is the challenging things for you? And Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen said something like, being me. And it's like people, we all have struggles being us, or being okay with us, being kind to ourselves. One of the things that we've practiced a little bit today is kindness, and kindness for self. And I've really enjoyed the connections that we've been making with people around the world. So it's kind of odd that we're disconnected, but you know, we're connected. There's probably, I don't know, maybe we're 5 or 10 to 10 different countries here, all connected. But for me, one of the things is that the connection doesn't involve touch. And I come from a touch world, and that's what I do. And so it's kind of a bit more challenging, I suppose, in that way. I am recording, just to let you know, but this is not going to go out. This is just for my own internal stuff, or that I can share with you guys at another stage. So if you're really not okay with it being recorded, then you might just want to turn your video off. Anybody else want to say anything as we settle in? A couple more minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, Paul. I work with people who are in recovery.
Yeah.
And also other people who are practicing Buddhists, and whichever group they're in, I really notice this sort of underlying fear with everybody, you know, of uncertainty, incredible times of uncertainty. And of course, as soon as we have some fear going on, it affects our breath. And so, you know, doing relaxation and getting people to be aware of their breath is such a gift at the moment. So it's great you're doing this. I think it's probably the most potent way for people to be able to be with themselves in a relaxed way. And it's not easy at the moment because there's so much fear.
Not easy, yeah. And absolutely, and everybody's has that. It's a resonance that's happening around the world. And it doesn't matter what camp you're in and what political leanings you have, or it exists in the world as quite a challenge for us. And I think you're really right. The breath is really important. And you probably know, and my wife was just in here saying hello, that she did have quite a serious fall about 4 weeks ago now, with concussion and smashed ribs and all this kind of stuff. And she's such a sensitive soul, she can't take medications. So she had to endure the whole thing. She has a deep practice, long practice in Vipassana meditation, along with Karenza. They were at the pagoda in India when it was just a little tent in its very early days. So these things that we're learning and that we practice is not just for us to do every day. It's for when we come up to these big challenges. It kind of I'm going to say it doesn't make it any easier, but it does, because the challenges are still challenges. We still get confronted with stuff. And one of the things that we do get confronted with is our past and our childhood and how we react and to that kind of, to different situations. I've had some really cool learnings from the conference. A lot of it reinforcing how I feel and how I am in the world anyway. And then I hear people say something that I know, but they say it in a different way, and it just lightens up that whole experience. So I love hearing people say things that I kind of do and I embody and I use, and it's just with a slightly different tint. And it just kind of, it draws you together with your differences, which I've really enjoyed as well. Just a quick little bit about myself is I qualified as an acupuncturist in 1985 in the UK at the 5 Element School of Acupuncture, which deals with, it's a body, mind, emotion style of acupuncture. Actually, my father also, he was a senior lecturer of mathematics at Southampton University. He took an early retirement from being a mathematician and studied acupuncture the year before I did. We started to get to know each other from that time, really. And he was involved with doing lots of other different growth works as well, and came upon a thing called zero balancing, which was a lot, a lot of its growth happened partly in Esalen, partly from an experience that the founder of Zero Balancing had when he was with Swami Muktananda in India and had a Shaktipat experience. And he was introducing this way that you could work energetically on the bones, and we were all getting really excited about that. And my father started studying with him and became a Zero Balancer and the Zero Balancing teacher, which I did a few years later as well. And so most of my passion was working with body work and working with touch, engaging skeletal system, and allowing the touch, which is a very skilled level of touch, just to support people in so many different and varied ways. And I retired from Zero Balancing because sometimes you need to kind of move on for different reasons. And then I set up something with a friend of mine for a short while, really good friend of mine who's one of my Qigong teachers. And we set up a thing that was called the A Way, because we said it was just a way, it wasn't the way. Because I felt people were being so tight with their own preciousness around their own therapy, and that was the only way. So came up with this name called A Way. You can check it out, he's in the UK. He also teaches bone yoga, so he's the only other person that teaches the bone yoga under sort of this umbrella of bone yoga. And I came up with bone yoga as a way that I could give myself a zero balancing session or body work session, and not depending on someone else giving me a session. So it looks at how you can engage and work at the skeletal system in a very careful and mindful way, similarly that we would work if we were working on someone with touch. And then I came up with the bone yoga body work, which is deeply influenced by Zero Balancing, but it also now incorporates a lot of the work that I do in yoga and engage in the skeleton and engage in fascia and the tissues in the body slightly differently. So I've expanded from that. And now I put it all under the umbrella of embodied touch body work. And just one of my things that I would like to do is to carry on teaching that while we're all in lockdown and while we're around the world. And I recognize that if it's a touch thing, it has its certain challenges. And I think there is somewhere that we can go with that. So just to let you know, I'm planning on looking at doing these classes every week, seeing how many people come on board and seeing if it goes somewhere. I have 35 years experience of working with people. I have 25 years experience of doing hands-on teaching to a high standard. And I don't want to retire. I don't want to be stuck in isolation. And so that's my kind of reaching out. And I'm glad that you've responded to that as well. And just one other thing I do, and I'm not plugging it really, but just to let you know, I do work from a reciprocity-based gift economy. So I do not charge for people, but I like the idea that it's a reciprocity thing. And if you feel moved, please, you can contribute, you can donate. There's a few places on my website that you can do that. Or you can just enjoy it. And, you know, it comes from the reciprocity-based gift economy, inspired by Charles Eisenstein. And he writes in there something like, you know, if you can't pay anything towards it, come along for free. I'd much prefer you to be able to give your children food still and come to my workshop. So I'm kind of a bit like that too. And I'm seeing how that goes, because I also think that that reciprocity gift economy is going to probably be quite important for us as things maybe tighten up around the world. That's just a thought maybe. Okay, that's my little ramble. So we're going to look at the breath, unless anybody wants to wave and say something that's there. And so the way that I'm kind of seeing this going is that we'll lie down in a minute and we'll just do some focus on the breath, get us all kind of working together. And then I'm going to show the video of Jessica Wolf and the Art of Breathing. And I've written some notes from it, and they're pretty much the notes that she's spoken about. She doesn't talk a lot on her little video, but I've kind of highlighted them. And I think it's kind of cool just to see them in writing as well, because the videos you'll see, it's so creative and artistic that you kind of get sucked into it as well. I think the words afterwards, for me, going through them kind of supported my understanding as well. And then we'll go back to doing some more lying down breathing, and we'll go through doing some movements that will support the new knowledge or new understandings or our deeper understanding of the way the breath works. Because you guys might know this anyway, and you might not. So before we do that, who's into belly breathing? Do this or something. Who's into thoracic breathing? Who predominates doing belly breathing? Is thoracic breathing wrong breathing? Yes or no? Okay, there's no right nor wrong with the question, just curious. So I think you're going to have a lot of, I think it's going to blow you away. It blows me away every time I see it. So after we've seen the video, we can do a little bit of chatting. So how about we all just lie down on the floor? Get yourself comfortable. You don't have to lie down. I'm going to make different suggestions to you. Please feel free to do them or not do them. This is really just an exploration for ourselves and an inquiry. But I'll tell you why I like lying down. Is because you don't have to use any energy in being seated. And you can much easier let go of your belly. You can much easier let go of your back. And we can start to use the floor. We'll also do some Qigong exercises as well, because Qigong is a really important part of my practice and my teaching. So finding yourself comfortable, you can have your legs up, you can have a bolster under your knees if you want. Spend just a tiny moment just getting yourself comfortable. Whether that's putting something under your neck, whether you need to put something warmer on. And just take a moment to just quieten down your mind's chatter. A lot of the work that we do is quietening down our mind so that we can just be a bit more present here without that activity. And a way that supports us to do that is to come into the movement of the breath for sensations in the body. So just allow yourself to feel the weight of your body in contact with the hard surface of the floor. And that surface of the floor is helping to define for you in some ways your own architecture of your body, the posterior part of your body. And as we know, if you do yoga, that there's a yield that goes into the floor, but after the yield, there's a reciprocal energy that does come back, and it's your support. So feel for a moment support of the floor. I'm going to put all you guys on mute if I can, so we don't. Okay, I think you're all on mute now. Feeling the weight of your body on the floor, quietening down your mind as much as you can. And you know it's okay if thoughts come up. It's okay. Just don't give them too much energy. If you find yourself lost in a thought, it really doesn't matter. Just come back. Have your jaw very slightly open and just rest your tongue on the bottom of your palate and just observe to see if that also changes something of your presence here. Quiet as you possibly can. That ability to be able to become present, become quiet, as Karenza was saying, is a huge gift. It's a learned gift as well. Quiet, quiet as you possibly can be. Doesn't matter if it's noisy. And just come for a moment just to feel the rising and falling of your belly. And as you're focusing on the movement of your belly, just be curious as to where your breath is. Be curious of the smoothness of your breath. Be curious if there are parts of your breath cycle that are not quite as smooth. And allowing that rising and falling of your belly as your diaphragm descends, just to help settle you here. Tends to be for people quite grounding. There's an inhale, there's a pause, there's an exhale and a pause. And because we're in rest, it really doesn't have to be that big a breath. The demand of supply of oxygen and blood around the body is not that big, very different from if we're being active. And also now just have a little look at what your rib cage is doing. As there's some movement in your thoracic cage. And if there is, just really be curious to where that movement might be. Is it just limited? Do you feel to your movement of your diaphragm going down and your belly bulging? Just an inquiry for you. Have a little look at your mind, see how quiet you are. Knowing that currently 31 of us all doing this at the same time, from all around the world. Although you're on your own in your room, I feel very connected to you. And I trust that we're all connected in some way because we're here. Then just slowly find yourself coming back up to seated in whatever way works for you. We will go back down to lying down after we've watched the video. But I just wanted to you to just tap into what your breath was doing now. Because a lot of the things that we do in yoga and a lot of the things that we do with our breath is not just so much about learning something new, but also letting go of our old patterns that stop us learning something new. And our breath is really fundamental with that. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
Activities we are involved in. You might experience a slow breath in rest position or more vigorous rhythms when speaking or walking. Whatever we do, greater vitality depends on free and buoyant breath.
What do you reckon? So,
Yeah, it just seems to me, Paul, it's me again, but that's quite remarkable because, you know, I've trained in a bit of body work myself, and I just have always noticed how people's upper back gets really frozen.
yes.
So it's holding the breath and holding the emotions in and not expressing yourself. That bit gets really stuck because and then we can't breathe, you know, and you see how that full breath, you know, you're using all those muscles, like she says, massaging all the internal organs.
Yeah.
So how seriously inhibiting that is for the whole body.
Yeah, absolutely. I first saw this when I'm doing one of Leslie Kaminoff's online courses, and he reckons that the video is about 98% accurate for someone that has a really good respiratory system. So the amount that it moves is very in line with someone who breathes really well, the whole system. Anybody else got some comments? Or anything you want to say, some sharings with that? Is it different? What about the pelvic floor? Pelvic floor is really important too. But not so much in breathing in terms of that, your respiratory system. But it can, the pelvic floor can help a lot of the movement of breath. It's used a lot in Qigong. It's used a lot when you work with your bandhas as well.
I found it really beautiful. I found it really beautiful, and I was quite struck by the kidney diaphragm connection and thinking about fear and
Yes.
Yeah, just that if you're not breathing properly, well, it's kind of obvious, but it's easy to overlook somehow. That if you're not breathing properly, your organs are sort of left in the, I don't know, left out on a limb, I was going to say, but, you know, kind of left on their own to cope. It felt, you know, it was kind of touched me. It's really beautiful.
I think your kidneys move about 2 kilometers a day or something. With every breath, they move just a few centimeters. So there's all your internal organs are being massaged. I don't know what the 2% was that was inaccurate from Leslie. I'm unsure. But, you know, 2% is quite close to me. And for me, Leslie Kaminoff has got to be one of the people you need to listen to about the breath. He's one of the breathing men of the world. Any other comments from you guys?
Yeah, like Helen, it's Dan here, Dan Joy.
Hi, Dan.
I found it really, really beautiful. whenever I see these type of images or 3D illustrations of our bodies, I'm just blown away. And I really, there is too much words how to express how fantastic I found it, that I see all this and I know that it's happening within me, in my body at the moment, watching this thing.
Yeah.
And it's just really like an artwork, but it's just amazing. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else? Thanks, Dan. Anna.
I think it's for me it was really surprising that the psoas is connected to the breath.
Oh, yeah.
Because I always wondered why the psoas is so important in emotions and why we store emotions there. But now I understand the connection with the breath and the connection with the emotions better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think connected with kidneys as well, very close to the kidney area if you look in terms of its physicality, but also in Chinese medicine too. Yes,
just
anybody
like
else?
Yes, I wanted to share that since lockdown, I am feeling my breath, my breathing is shorter.
Yes.
Less air coming in, and I was wondering if this fear and moving less has to do with our muscles being stressed and not letting the ribs expand. If that has to do.
Yeah, the breath underpins every pattern in our body. And so if you're looking at changing something for yourself, if you change your breath, because your breath is fundamental to all our emotions and everything that we do, which is one of the reasons why you look at the three main things that we do in yoga, which is breath, mind, and movement, and that coordination together. And people use their breath differently. I tend to hold on to my breath and I suddenly need a gasp. So and I've been watching that particularly with the anxiousness and stuff that are coming up for me. And I think we hold our breath also at different times. A lot of it also stems back to childhood, but a lot of it is just not very good habit patterns. And the really cool thing about it is that we can change these patterns. We're going to work on that in a minute. We're going to just do some breath work to bring this into a sense of embodiment. Anybody else?
I had one more question about, can you hear me or not?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. About the breath patterns. I don't know if you can get into them right now, but are there any good resources on these specific kind of breath patterns that are maladaptive?
Specific for?
Well, I'm a breath worker, and sometimes I see these people who are breathing in a way that is not so optimal, but they're I'm quite fascinated, especially from a traditional Chinese medicine point of view, or a shiatsu, kind of how these breath patterns kind of influence our emotions, our behaviors, and I was wondering if you have any resources about that.
If you look at the breath, if you look at the lungs, as you know, in Chinese medicine, that relates to the metal element and the emotion of grief. So our grief gets held in our lungs, in our lung tissue, and that can be transferred into the actual fabric around that, both the fascia and also the ribs as well. You can start to hold those energetic patterns. I think what happens after a while is they feed each other. So you have a bad breathing pattern. You have I'm sorry, I don't mean bad, but maybe I'll use another word, a not very helpful breathing pattern. And then you have an emotion that's a bit challenging, and they start to play on each other a wee bit. And you kind of sometimes don't know what the egg and the chicken is after a while. And there are lots of breathing patterns that you can do. I wouldn't advocate any particular breathing pattern apart from one that's different from what you're doing now. So if we're locked in our own pattern now and you want to change that, you have to breathe different. You can't change your breath patterns by doing the same thing that you're doing. So often just some change is going to be good. For me, I like, and you'll see that if we'll get a bit of chance of doing a little bit of the bone yoga, you'll see that the work that I do and focus on is really simple. And so for me, just a real simple breath of ease, but also an exploration of how it works in the different cavities of your body is the breath that I like to work with. And there are just so many that whatever really excites you, go with that and keep learning from different people. I don't have one particular way, really. Does that helpful?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly my question because I'm not looking for the perfect breath. It was just more that I was kind of curious about how certain breath patterns correlate to specific emotional problems.
Yes.
So what you mentioned about the lungs, you know, that type of information, and
I think sometimes it's really hard to find out where the association is with the breath and with the emotion. And for me, often it's, if you can create clearer patterns in your body somehow, that will override emotional patterns, even if you know it or you don't know it. And I don't think there would be a specific breath for a specific emotion. It so much depends on the person. So if I'm doing body work, and I'm working with the breath of the person, it's going to be really particular to them with that particular emotion that maybe we're working with. But no, there's no one, I can't really answer it in one particular way. It just really, just the flexibility and the knowledge to be able to support people. So I used to be so I was told belly breathing was the best, and I've been teaching belly breathing until I came upon this. And I went, holy shit, I've got to change my pattern of breathing. I remember a client coming back and said, can you do this? And he said, but you told me to do this. And I said, well, I've learned something different now. And similarly with my wife and other people as well, is that I've introduced them to some thoracic breathing, and they go, this is amazing because now I feel more freedom. Because if you just become a belly breather and you don't allow your ribs to move, then you're restricting the whole of the movement of the breath. And we can have a look. I'll go through the notes because I think it's quite useful to look at those notes as well too. Is there anybody else? Helen?
Sorry, me again. I was just thinking, I think unconsciously I've understood the term belly breathing to mean breathing that goes into the belly and then up, like maybe more like a complete breath or something.
Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued by this because I have been working with people recently and thinking, how is it that they're breathing down into their belly but their ribs aren't moving at all? So yeah, it's really on my growing edge, this work.
Yeah.
Because I realize that when I breathe into my belly, it goes into the belly first, like filling a jug, and then the ribs come in, and then the top of the shoulders come in, and it's kind of everything.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I think one of the things is that when someone says just be a belly breather, is they, by nature, then you tighten up your ribs a bit so that they don't move. And if you look at the diagram of the connections of the diaphragm all along our lower ribs, so every breath is a diaphragmatic breath because the diaphragm moves. If it goes down, if it moves and you get the belly bulging, that's from the diaphragm moving. The ribs are moving because of that. But there's certainly some schools of yoga that just do belly breathing. And I think it's because they think the secondary breathing muscles and the accessory ones, if you use them too much, then you're using muscles and breathing patterns that that don't focus on the main breathing muscle, which is your diaphragm, and so that there's a disparity between those two. I think that's where it comes from a lot. Anybody else? Okay, let me sorry, go.
Well, I don't think it's that important, but yeah, I just wanted to say that for me, belly breathing is also simply just having my focus on the belly, but not manipulating the body in any way. Yeah. So I'm not coming from a yoga background. So for me, belly breathing doesn't mean that I just breathe or into or from my belly and I don't breathe from the ribcage or the upper part. It's just to have my mental focus on this area, but nothing else.
Yeah. It certainly does exist in the yoga world that there's a restriction of the thoracic cage and the movement in the thoracic cage. Okay, we'll go back to questions. I'm going to share screen because I wrote down a few bits and pieces if I can find it. See if this works. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go through because I think it's interesting. So breathing is movement. Okay, so here's
sorry, Paul, the screen is black for me. Is it for anyone else?
Okay, sorry.
Yes, black for me too.
Okay, I'm going to go back. I'll go and see if I can. It says share screen. I share screen. If this doesn't work again, I'll. Is that still black for you guys?
It's okay now.
Okay. Let me know. So here's the thing. Breathing is to do with movement. So while you're sitting there, breathe in without moving your thoracic cage or your abdomen, without any movement. It's impossible to take for air to come in. So there's a thing with it's an atmospheric pressure change. So what we do in terms of the movement in the body, if you're not breathing well, it's because you don't know how to create change in your body. And the change that you create in your body is there's going to be some expansion, which means that your the atmospheric pressure in you is less than outside and air automatically comes in. That's the way it works. And the way that we can experience this, and let's all do this at the same time while you're just maybe not looking at the diagram here or the words. So what I like you to do is just to breathe in gently and then breathe out, and keep breathing out until you breathe out all that you can. And keep breathing out and keep breathing out, keep breathing out. And when you breathe out all that you feel is comfortable, just hold it for a while and hold it. So maybe it gets a tiny bit uncomfortable, and see what happens with the air that suddenly comes in and what happens in suddenly the shape. So you don't have to hold it too long, and then allow the air to come in, and you can feel that it's just rushing in because you suddenly open that space for it to come in. So movement is really crucial. The spine, spinal column is really important. We focus a lot in the bone yoga on that. It's both for support, but also for mobility. The ribs are really important in terms of their springiness and crucial for efficient breathing. And you've got the concepts of sthira and sukha that are in the spine. The front part, we'll look at this in a little while. If we get the time, the front part of the spine is more related to stability, and the back part of your spine is more related to more relaxation in some ways, but the front part stability. So you've got sthira and sukha in different aspects of the spine as well. So the diaphragm, we know this is the primary muscle of respiration. And I've highlighted this bit here. The fibers spread from the dome-like shape of the central tendon and attached to the circumference of all the lower ribs. So every time you make a breath, it has that effect. The movement of your diaphragm affects the movement of your ribs. It descends in inhalation and ascends in exhalation. And there's more muscle.
I don't think we're seeing it, Paul. Sorry.
You're not seeing it, aren't you?
We're not. I think you need to maybe put it into full screen on your machine, because we can only see the first slide.
Is it not moving now? No?
just got kind of like the
How's
the
that?
visual that you gave. Yeah. Right.
Is that better?
Words, but no diagram.
Oh, there's no diagrams, just words.
Yes.
Okay.
Saying lungs and then some words about the lungs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so one of the things that she mentioned too is this bit here that the lungs extend up past the collarbone. They come up really high. So you can almost, if you press on the top of your shoulder, you can almost push down into your lungs. They're not symmetrical. And there's this whole thing that happens in the body that we're not symmetrical, that we work in spirals. And the scapula is really important, and we're going to have a little look at that as well. We talked about the diaphragm, the psoas muscle being really important, and they share some attachments. This whole thing about the diaphragm massaging and stimulating all the internal organs is just fascinating. And that the heart nestles between the lungs. So every time you breathe and you're breathing well with your lungs, your heart's getting this massage. It's like your lungs are cuddling your heart. And the liver, the stomach, the large intestines, the kidneys, all your organs are benefiting from that as well. What do we want to look at here? So everything participates. Some initiate, some don't. But the whole thoracic, the whole of our trunk works together. Most of it is unconscious and most of it is automatic. But we know that we can influence. And is this what we were saying just a second ago, that it influences our mind and body, and everything is influenced by that. So if you want to change the breath, you change you, and it's a lot about habits, changing habits. I'll stop that screen share again. Just wanted to go over just, what am I doing, pressing the wrong one. Should we do a little bit of lying down breathing work just so that we can bring this into a sense of embodiment? So, and we'll talk again afterwards. So if you like to all lie down again, and I'll just take you through some exploration of the breath to incorporate the kind of words that you've heard about it, the visuals that you've seen. So again, just get yourself comfy. Make sure your head's not in flexion or extension, so it feels kind of nice. That watermelon looks very tasty as well. And start off by focusing on the movement of your diaphragm and your belly moving, your belly bulging. And have an inhale, have a pause and an exhale. And just giving yourself again that permission just to be here as fully as you possibly can in exploration. If something doesn't work for you, please feel free to change it. This is your exploration. And allow your inhale or your exhale to be slightly longer than your inhale. So maybe a count of 4 breathing in, a pause of 1, and maybe a count of 6 breathing out. Making it easy for you, not really long counts. So there's an inhale, pause, and an exhale. And try and have your inhale a smooth beginning, smooth middle, and a smooth end. A smooth pause, transition, and the exhale smooth in its beginning and middle and end. Again, just keeping your mind as quiet as you can. So your diaphragm descends, your belly bulges, massages your internal organs. But also just take a moment, because don't forget this is a three-dimensional movement and there is more tissue of the diaphragm at the back. So also just see if you can focus on the movement posturally as well. Because every time you breathe in, your spine will flatten very gently towards the floor. And on your exhale, it will just regain its natural shape that it has. So in many ways, if you look at that, because we live very front on, and so when we do a belly bulging breath, it should really incorporate the movement posteriorly as well. And also the sides of your belly. So as you're breathing in, your belly expands, back goes slightly more towards the floor, there's an expansion outwards. So feeling the whole movement of your abdominal area. And now shift your attention to your thoracic cage and the part that's in contact with the floor. You have your scapula, behind that you have your ribs, underneath that there's your lungs. And initiate the movement now of your breath to be predominantly back part of your lungs. And as you're breathing in, there's a little bit more pressure that you'll feel going towards the floor. And the exhale, again, it's just a letting go and a recoil. And if it works for you too, just a little bit longer your out breath than your in breath. For most people, that supports us going into our parasympathetic, our rest and restore. If it doesn't for you, please change it, but slightly longer out breath. And now switch your attention to the sides of your rib cage, the part between your sides of your body and your arms. And initiate and allow the movement to come from there. So your rib cage expanding sideways. And again, trying to have the breath as smooth as possible, both with your inhale, exhale, smooth pause, smooth transition. Just introducing some real gentle ease of movement. And now switching your attention to the front part of the rib cage, that part that we're probably a little bit more intimately in relationship with. And allow the movement of your ribs to expand towards the ceiling. A pause. And the exhale again, just a letting go. Pause with your breath, the inhale. Smooth beginning, smooth middle, smooth end. And now your whole thoracic cage is one functioning unit. The front, the back, sides, up, the down. And if you're challenged in some area or in some way, this is just some information for you, and it's something that you can look at. So if it's not working in the way that you feel it should do for you, maybe not think that it's not working, that it's just an observation, just a curiosity. We have some blind spots that we can't focus on. But as much as possible now, the movement of your whole thoracic cage, front, back, sides, top, bottom. And the exhale is just a letting go. And then come back now to, or come to having an imagery of a ball or a sphere that's just below your xiphoid process, just below your rib cage, deep in your body. Imagine there's a ball. And that's the initiated part of your breath. So as the ball gets bigger, it expands upwards, it expands downwards, and it also goes sideways and forwards and back. And just allow for some freedom of movement of your breath, wherever that might be in that journey of breath, whether it's more down in your abdomen or more in your thoracic, but allow for some smoothness and some freedom of breath. Inhale, pause, exhale. And stay with it just for a little bit longer. Doesn't matter if your mind goes, don't forget, just come back. I'm really like to share and introduce ease of mind, ease of body, ease of movement, and kindness in the way that we work. And then just let go of any particular way of breathing and just come back to a breath that just is your breath in this moment, and just seeing what that is for you. And then let's come to standing. I've not got you on the screen at the moment so that you can see me a bit more fully. Actually, does that work better for you? Because I actually can't see you. I quite like to see you. It's a bit odd. I'm going back to the gallery view because I felt funny just being all on my own looking at myself. I'm hoping that this will work well for you as well. So I'm going to share with you 3 Qigong exercises that as part of my daily practice and have been for years. And for me, if I could only do a few movements, these would be 3 of the movements that I would choose as my practice. Can you see me okay? Thumbs up. No, cool. So come to standing and have your feet kind of parallel and about a fist width apart. So they're quite close, but if you could put your fist in between, about that. And just come, and you've probably done a lot of standing work before, but just be maybe fresh with your experience and this exploration that we're having. Coming down into the sensations in your feet, feeling the connection of your feet with the floor. And out of curiosity, just have a feel to see where there might be a little bit more pressure, whether it's on one foot, whether it's part of one foot. And now just allow yourself, and you can do this with your eyes closed if it's comfortable as well, Just allow yourself to go forward just the tiniest bit and then back. And if you probably explored this many times, and maybe I'll introduce a few different things for you in the explorations. I do this every day, don't never get bored with it. Just taking yourself forwards and back. And then come to a place that for you that feels now neither forward nor back, but kind of midline between that. Coming to the sensations again, your feet on the floor, your heels, your balls of your feet, your toes. Softening your toes, softening your feet, soften your ankles, and feel the connection that you have between your ankles and your knees and the tibia and fibula that are keeping you upright. Soften your knees, soften your ankles so that the bones in your lower leg can do most of the work keeping you upright. Keeping your knees soft, your hips soft, and having that appreciation of your femur bones, the big bones in your upper legs, keeping you in your uprightedness. Keeping your ankles soft, knees soft, enjoying the length and the uprightedness that you have from your tibia, fibula, femur. Soften your buttocks, soften your thighs, belly soft, your lower back soft, mid-back, rib cage. Allow your arms just to dangle as much as they can, and have a tiny little bit of space between the sides of your body and your arms, and your fingers very gently pointing towards the floor. And then just the last thing here, think about the position of your head on your skull on the first vertebra, and your neck, and the position of your neck. And in your uprightedness, just soften as much as you can around being upright. There'll always be some movement. It's not a military stance. And now just allow yourself to go left and right a little bit. And as you put more pressure on one side, feeling how that sends a pathway of connection going up to your hip, and the other side as well. Your ankles are going to move. Just gently going side to side. You don't have to do much movement to just have this experience. Keeping soft in the musculature as much as you can. And now come back to a place that for you now feels neither forward nor back, nor left nor right. Come back to your sensation of your feet on the floor and that connection that you have with the floor and the support that it's giving you. Soften your feet, your toes, soften your ankles, your knees and your hips. And again, the appreciation of the long bones in your leg, the tibia and fibula and the femur bones keeping you upright. And does some part of your body keep tightening up your old default patterns of holding on around your knees or your thighs or your buttocks? Just keep giving yourself that opportunity to let go of those held habitual patterns. Lower back, mid-back, upper back. Again, just allowing your scapula to just be relaxed on your thoracic cage and your arms dangling by your sides. Fingers very gently pointing towards the floor. Quiet in your mind. Have your jaw very gently open and your tongue gently resting on your palate. See if that changes things for you. And just stay here for a while. Keep letting go just as much as you can, but still stay firm in your uprightedness. I love this practice of just being upright, quietening down. Those old patterns of tensions come up and I can let go again. And I have this relationship with them. And from here, we're just going to explore a few Qigong exercises. And if you're familiar with them, some of you have done this with me before, please feel free just to move into them. But for those that are new, I'll show you just a couple of times so you can see what I'm going to do. The first one is called Lift in the Sky, and I'll show you what it's like. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to bend my head forward, my arms are extended, my palms are facing the floor and my fingers pointing towards each other. And I'm looking through my fingers, and on an inhale I'm lifting my arms up. I'm just going to show, you're not going to bend down, but I'm just showing you what my arms are like if they're extended. I pause with my breath as I'm extended, and with a pause of my breath, I push up and I lift the sky. And then the exhale is my arms are coming down and my head comes down. Okay? So we can do that again. So my head bends forward, my arms are extended, my fingers pointing towards each other, palms facing the floor. I'm inhaling, coming up, looking through my fingers. When my palms are facing the ceiling, I push up, lift in the sky, and then I exhale through my mouth. So it's an inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Okay? So just keep working with that. It's not going to change. Inhale coming up. Pause with your breath. Lift in the sky. Exhale coming down. My arms and my head comes back into that neutral facing position. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The exhale is like when you do a hut on your glasses. Inhale. Exhale. And while you're doing that now, it's not going to change. But just imagine now that your arms are floating up in water. So take the effort a bit away from the movement. So you're just allowing your arms floating up in water. Pausing with your breath, exhaling, coming down. Inhale, coming up. Make it real easy for you. And we're going to do this just a couple more times. Don't worry if you're not doing it right. Don't worry if you're unsure. You can do a movement that still will be supportive for you. And then when your arms are next by your sides, just come back to standing. Again, feeling yourself being connected with the floor. Allowing your shoulders just to dangle, a little bit of space. Make sure your head's not in flexion or extension. Soften your knees, soften your ankles. Soften your buttocks, lower legs. And then from here, we're going to do another Qigong movement. It's quite similar. It's called Carrying the Moon. And I'll show you what it looks like front on and then sideways. So I'm now going to bend my torso a little bit more forwards. My arms are extended. My hands are cupped. They're probably just about above my knees. And then on an inhale, I'm bringing my arms up. They go behind me. I pause with my breath, and then my arms come back down on an exhale. I'll show you sideways. Inhale, coming up. Pause with my breath. Exhale, coming down. Okay, you have a go. Carrying the moon. So bending your torso a little bit forward, arms are extended, they're ready cupped. On an inhale, I'm lifting my arms up parallel in front of me. I pause with my breath as I'm holding, carrying the moon, and then I exhale, my arms are coming down. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, coming down. There's a slight pause in the breath. Inhale, coming up. Carry the moon with a pause. Exhale. And we do this about maybe 10, 15, 20 times. Working with the breath, working with movement, taking yourself off this place of center, coming back through center, softening your tissues as you're working. And now imagine that your arms are floating up in water. So you take the effort out of the movement. And part of doing that effortless is because it's good for us to do things with the least amount of effort. And it's kind of kind to ourselves as well. And it also gives us choices, because we can do this in many a varied way. We can do it more vigorously. And now when your arms are by your side, just come back to standing again. Just for a moment, just feel what your hands are feeling. Mine are buzzing. Building up a lot of chi energy. This is so helpful for us. If you do this every day for a month, see if it changes. So everything has a consequence. Doing this every day for a month. I've done it every day for 5 years. It makes a difference. And the last one that we're doing together is called Beautiful Butterflies Dancing in Front of Flowers. And it's quite similar to the last one. So again, I'll show you. So I'm going to bend forward, but quite a bit more. Quite a bit more. And then my arms come up from that position. I'll show you front on. Beautiful butterflies dancing in front of flowers. But in this position, I'm going to pause with my breath. And at the pause, there's a transition between my head coming vertical and my palms now facing the floor. And then I exhale coming down. I'll show you that again. So I'm inhaling coming up. I pause with my breath and there's a transition. My head looks forward, my palms face the floor, and then exhale, my arms come down. Let's have a go. Bending forward, inhaling, beautiful butterflies dancing in front of flowers. Pause with your breath. That transition, head, arms, exhale coming down. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. And you can imagine that you're this beautiful butterfly just dancing in front of flowers and feeling how you're being taken off that point of center again. You're using your breath. You're creating ease of movement in your body. Your mind is focused. Although it's a Qigong exercise, it's so related to everything that we would do both in the yoga and somatic world. And imagine again that your arms are just floating up in water. So you take the ease, or you work with ease, take the effort. When you do arms floating up in water, it's not so important the form. So there's different ways that you can work with Qigong. And just enjoy that movement. I love that transition with the pause of the breath, arms coming down. And we just do that a couple more times. And when your arms are next by your sides, again, just come back to standing. And just feel what it's like standing. Is it easier? Is it harder? Are you more focused? Are you more in touch with tensions? Do you feel more relaxed? How are your hands, are they buzzing? And just stand here just for a few moments and let go as much as possible of any tensions in your muscles, in your fascia, and allow your skeleton to really support you in your uprightedness. Taking the effort out of standing, just being here, present. And place both hands on your belly, just below your belly button, on the place called the dantian. It's about 2 to 3 inches below your belly, your hara. And smile from your heart. Smile from your heart. And then just rubbing your hands together, just dab our eyes, massage our head, shake an arm and a leg, a little walk around the room. And then we'll come back with just, there's some other things that we can work on, but just want to have a chat, see how you guys are doing, really. I'll see if I can unmute you all, if that works. Otherwise, if you want to talk, unmute all. Okay. How you doing? Do a thumbs up, thumbs down. Anybody want to talk? You might have, I've tried to unmute you, you might have to unmute yourselves. Unmute all if you want to talk. Oh no, I'm clicking the wrong button, silly me, sorry. Okay, unmuted. Anyone talking? How was that?
I would like to say something. I really enjoyed the exercise, especially because in the beginning I had quite a lot of difficulty being effortless in standing, and really I was constantly trying to become aligned and to find that effortlessness. And then after the breathing, it felt I was kind of making more contact with that. So it really helped me to kind of be more in that center.
Nice.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
You're welcome. I love doing those 3 exercises. You know, it's really difficult to be uptight and angry or frustrated when you're doing that, isn't it? You know, it's a cool thing to do, right? Anybody else? Who else wants to say something?
Well, I'd like to.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Not only was everything you shared great in information and experience, very centering and calming, but what I resonated with was that there was a lot of compassion and generosity from your side in the way you were taking us through all of this, holding the space for us, and just putting it all out there for our own benefits. Really, thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot you can do in the world, but you know, if you can just do that kind of stuff, that's really important for me. So thanks for sharing that and highlighting that. You know, when we first had lockdown at the beginning of March or in March or whenever it was, for me, straight away in my yoga practice for myself, but also in what I was teaching, it was about just being kind. There was nothing else really. You know, you tie yourself in fancy knots, doesn't really do it, does it? But if you can be kind, it just makes all the difference. So yeah, thanks for that. Somebody else?
I had an interesting experience there, because when you asked us the question, are you a thoracic breather or a belly breather? My first instinct was, well, it depends. It depends. I'm a thoracic breather when I need my alignment when I move, and I'm a belly breather when I'm lying down. So when we did the first exercise lying down, it's almost like I couldn't feel my ribs moving. I thought, oh, this is strange. And then I found my brain was saying, well, is it that your diaphragm moves your organs and then makes room for the lungs to fill? Or do the lungs fill and push the diaphragm down? And then I was just having that quandary when you brought the ball image. And then I was like, the diaphragm initiates all of it.
Yes.
And so we're always belly and thoracic breathers, really, because we can't, it's all this symphony,
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. No, that's perfect. That's that's just as it is, where every breath is initiated by the diaphragm, and it's all diaphragmatic breathing. We do a lot of work also exploring breathing from the lung tissue itself. Maybe we'll do a little bit of that. We've got a bit of time as well. And I do lots of rotational work with my spine, and sometimes I work from doing that rotation rather than working from the spine, but working from the lung tissues that are massaging the heart at the same time. So there's lots of different ways of exploring that, working from the lung tissue is really cool.
Paul?
Fantastic, yes.
The first time I did it with you on Tuesday, afterwards I said to you that I could feel the sides of my rib cage expanding, but I couldn't feel the back. Yes. And then after you showed the slide presentation today, or the video, it all made sense. And now today when you did it with us, I could feel everything. I could feel everything individually, and then it all at the same time. And now I'm definitely going to concentrate on breathing that way in future. It's brilliant.
Yes, yeah. You know, one thing that I like to look at and share is versatility, not just one breath. And as Kate, you said, sometimes, if you're being active, you're going to be here. If you want more stability, breathe here. Because when you start breathing down here, you're going to relax some of your muscles that are keeping you stable, both your abdominal ones, but also your back muscles. So staying upright, or if you're doing one-legged something or other, breathe in here, not abdominally, because you'll disengage some of those muscles that are keeping you posteriorly upward. So having versatility and having skills of ways of breathing is really important, not just one way. Absolutely. In Qigong martial arts, when they do a karate chop, it's done on out breath. Curious, isn't it? They go, ha, don't they? They don't go, ha. It just doesn't do the same thing, does it? There's a power, there's a steerer and stability that's created when you and you use your breath and you tighten your abdomen and you get that energy coming up, so that you can break brick with hand when science says that hand should be broken because brick is harder. I'll teach you how to blow candles out with the end of your fingers if you practice with me for a while. It's a good party trick. Who else wants to share? Anna.
Yes, I'll do my best with English. I'll see if I can make myself understood. I found myself thinking, I am not breathing well, or I am breathing short. Yes. When we were standing, the first time standing straight. And then when you began with the movements, maybe my mind stopped thinking or concentrated in the movements, and breathing came in naturally. So moving the body and letting its natural wisdom and resting the mind, it all worked like naturally. Yes. So moving was the key for me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I spent many years doing Vipassana meditation, sitting on the cushion, and I'm a Sagittarian monkey, and it's kind of hard work for a monkey to sit on a cushion for hours and hours. And in some ways I should have moved on, but I didn't move on. And so part of my learning was not moving on when I should have moved on, maybe a lot earlier than I did. So for me, doing that kind of meditative quality, but using my breath differently, but also moving my body, just works for me. Just sitting still and just like my monkey mind going and feeling like I'm a failure because I can't sit still long enough, or I want to keep thinking. But, and sometimes I do my yoga and I don't bother about staying mindful. I just move my body. I'm not going to give myself a hard time with my yoga. We spend a lot of time in the evening, my wife and I, doing yoga, and we're just lying around and and doing stuff on the floor, nothing really major specific. My morning practice seems to be a bit more, both practices are really good. Yeah. Moving, breath, mind, what it's about. Anybody else? Pin.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, with the video, when I saw the diaphragm, I also had the image of a butterfly in my body, like the butterfly is just flying, or like octopus in the water when we were doing the movement standing, like
Yes.
So it was very, yeah, just it moves me, like the softness. So thank you very much.
Yes, yeah, and angel wings is said too. Fantastic. Any other comments?
Yeah, Paul, thanks so much for the lesson. I really appreciate the last 3 movements, especially the standing, like what Anna just said. Actually, I used to do hatha, and in the hatha training, the alignment and bring all the muscles in alignment and be strong of everything for beginners. And the first time I was touching to embodiment practice, it's like, wow, that's a completely different approach. Understanding like what you just said, to find a center, but just let everything go. It's really amazing. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I love it too. Thank you.
But I have to go, I'm sorry.
Okay, come and join me next week because I'm planning on doing these kind of weekly if people are interested, and maybe you guys need to let me know. Send me some emails because, hey, look, I've got lots of different skills. We can move and do lots of different stuff. Let me know as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. So we've got about another 20 minutes to go for our 2-hour slot. How about we stand up again just for a little while? And we'll do some real simple stuff. I'm quite a simple person, as you've gathered, eh? Just like doing simple things. So I'm going to start off and I'm just going to allow my torso just to bend forward a little bit. And I'm going to inhale here. And then I'm going to exhale. I'm going to inhale. So don't forget your lung tissues are bigger at the back. So as I'm folding forwards, just with my torso, I'm going to breathe into the backs of your lungs. And then exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And allow that movement to increase. So you can put your arms in the air on your exhale, and you can inhale, bending forwards, but inhaling into your ribs at the back, your lungs at the back. Exhale. Inhale forwards. And as you bend forwards, inhale, pause. And then do an exhale as a tabletop. And then inhale, lungs at the back. And then exhale, coming up. And just explore that movement of forward bending. And if you're more historical, where you would forward bend and you'd breathe out, that's understandable if you're a belly breather, but we're looking more at being a thoracic breathing here, just as giving us different possibilities. I also like to do a movement like this with my arms, because as I'm breathing out and then I'm breathing in, coming down, because this is the way your arms develop embryologically. So there's a movement that happens here that I like to introduce. And then while you're forward bending, just allow yourselves just to dangle, and then maybe crossing your arms over as well as you're forward bending. And while you're in this forward bend position, keep your breath in your lungs at the back. And if you feel you can't and you're struggling a bit with it, doesn't matter. You can do a belly breath or you can stand up. But again, this is just looking at, can I use a breath for this occasion which is going to be more supportive of an inhalation, which it would be if you're breathing into your lungs at the back. Okay? So it took me probably about 3 months to change that breathing pattern because it was so ingrained in me. When I forward bend and I exhale, but inhaling, lungs at the back. Okay, so come to kneeling down. And if you find it uncomfortable kneeling on the floor, just have a bolster underneath you. So I'll take you through part of a little bit of the sequence that we do in the bone yoga. We'll probably do a couple of things before we close. So before I start moving, I always like to just settle myself so I don't just sit here and start doing the movements. And what we're going to look at now, and I'll do a real quick anatomy review or tell you a bit about the anatomy. We're going to look at rotating the spine. So we're going to do it from our lumbar spine, our thoracic spine, and our neck. So our lumbar spine is vertical, the facets are vertical, which means I can really easy forward bend and backward bend. I can also do some side bending, but rotation is really very limited, only up to about 5%. So when you rotate your whole of your spine, the lumbar spine rotates only 5%. If it rotates more than that, what happens is your ligaments bite in and they say, please don't do any more because you're not designed to do any more. And the ligaments then were going to stop it going into too deeply into the end range. In your thoracic spine, the facets of the vertebra are oblique, which allows for this rotation movement. And they're restricted a little bit or quite a bit by the ribs. And then your neck is freely moving with its oblique facets, the orientation of the facets. So, if you place one hand behind your back, keeping your torso and head facing forwards, and then the other hand on the opposite knee. And if you can keep your head and torso facing forwards, just rotate your lumbar so you feel your lumbar engaged. Probably quite a few of you will turn your head at the same time. So just bring that back in your torso as well. And feel what it feels like to feel that sensation. So there's a voluntary bit of movement. The ligaments start to engage and you can go slightly more deep into that ligament. Soften with the pause of your mind and breath and then just return to facing forwards. So just exploring how your spine, lumbar spine is designed to work and designed to stop because it doesn't want to go too deep into that range. And then when you've explored that, see if you can move now your thoracic spine from your lower thoracic, mid-thoracic, upper thoracic, and then your neck. And then return your neck, upper spine, mid-spine, lower spine, lumbar. So you're just taking yourself on a journey, engaging the ligaments as you're rotating and taking your spine through a movement that it's designed to do because of the facets of the joint and not being predominated by musculature. Because a lot of what we do and a lot of the yoga that we do is really very muscle orientated. So I'm just trying to look at how our movement and our presence can be influenced by our skeleton. Swapping hands over. So the other hand's behind your back, the other one on the opposite knee, keeping the head and torso facing forwards. And start off again by engaging your lumbar. So you might feel that your lumbar on this side moves more. There's a bit more space. the facets on both sides of our spine are different. Most people on the right-hand side, the facets are more oblique, which allows for more rotation. And that's probably got to do with the way that we work, that we exist spiralically in the world. And because we're predominantly right-handed. So engage your lumbar, explore that movement of your lumbar, being kind and gentle with your engagement. See, if you go too deep into the engagements, the ligament's going to react. So there's a place where they respond, when it's a juicy place. It's very similar to that place when someone works on you with some touch. But you can find that place and then rotating your spine all the way up to your neck and then your neck and then return. So I used to, and from probably when I was about 18, I used to go to the chiropractor, osteopath regularly, and 5 years ago, probably was going once a month. And since I've been doing this regularly, I've seen the osteopath twice. And he can also adjust my lumbar spine, which he couldn't do before because it was so locked up. That whole movement and care has changed. Okay, swapping hands over again so that we're going to rotate the other way. But before you start to rotate the lumbar, thoracic and neck and do the movements with kindness. And just see whether that changes the way that you move and engage. It doesn't have to be breath orientated, but it can be, and it's quite cool when it is. But just be kind in your movements, be kind to yourself. We have choices so much of the time. And swapping sides again, swapping hands over when you're facing forwards. And again, just engaging and moving with kindness. And does that change your experience and your presence in the world? About 4 months ago, so much frustration was coming up for me. And I was sitting in the garden and I questioned myself and I said, Paul, what are you doing? Why are you being so uptight? Why don't you treat your mind with the same kindness that you would do when you do your yoga? And it just changed everything for me. So I realised I could be kind. Okay, a little bit more. Come to a cat-cow position. So standard cat-cow position is your hips are above your knees, the shoulders above your wrists. It doesn't have to be vertical, you can have a slight angle here. And while you're in your cat-cow position, just have a sense of what your hands are doing and your fingers and what your wrists and arms doing. What are your lower arms doing, your ulnar and radius keeping you upright? So softening again your hands and your wrists, soften your elbows. Feel your humerus bones also keeping you upright. And that tension that's being created, that yield and that pushback, you feel all the way to your shoulders, to your scapula, and maybe even your ribs. And what are your knees doing? What are your feet doing? Your feet are acting as a slight little anchor as well. And start doing little rotation movements so that your pelvic girdles, so you're kind of massaging the ball and socket of your joint. You're massaging the ball with the socket. You're massaging the socket with the ball. So just some gentle circular movements in your cat-cow position. And as you're doing this rotational movement in your hips, just out of curiosity, what are your knees doing? They're kind of mimicking that movement. What are your feet doing? Your shoulders, your wrists, your arms. And then incorporate a little bit of kind of snake-like movement going up your spine as well, at the same time as doing your massaging of your ball and socket joint. Allow some snake-like movements to come up your spine, and also incorporate some flexion and extension, some cat-cow, and just see where you're being taken. To imagine that you're this beautiful bit of seaweed that's just kind of floating around in this water and current, oscillating back and forth, feeling fascia engage, and then just allowing yourself to move on without the need for having big muscle sensations. Flexion, extension, cat-cow, hip, snake-like movement, and then come back to a relative stillness. And we're going to, in a second, we're going to come up and we're going to do a down dog. Feeling your hands connected. Get your position. Think about your head and your neck. And the way that I'm going to suggest that you do this, if you want to follow, is in a minute your knees are going to go away from your hands. And at the same time as your knees go away from your hands, allowing your heels to go to or towards the floor, and allowing yourself now to come up into a down dog. So using more of your leg muscles to allow you to come up. And as you're in your down dog, some little pedaling back and forth, just to get those nice sensations, if you want to, at the backs of your legs. And then pausing for a moment, feeling the sensation of hands all the way up to your shoulders and your feet, all the way to your hips. And then coming just momentarily to a high plank. And then allow your knees to come to the mat at about the width of your mat, so they're spread out. And allow yourself just to sink and settle down into extended child pose with your arms extended. And with your arms extended, feeling that connection that your arms have with your scapula, and that pulling gently on your scapula, and that gentle pulling on your scapula stimulating your ribs. And you might want to even walk your fingers away. Feel more of a connection with your spine as well, because as we saw in that beautiful video, how everything is moving all at the same time. And then from this, your extended child pose, just allow yourselves to roll onto your sides and find yourself lying down on the floor again, so that we can spend a few minutes Savasana together. And then after that, we can chat for a few more minutes if you want to too. So the closing, before we do our closing, you chat lying down on the floor if you're comfortable, so that we can do some Shavasana together.
Let's leave that. Then 20 picked up to Bognor, is that all right? Yeah, no worries.
Okay. So, lying down, taking the effort out of the musculature and your need for blood supply going around your body, and coming back to something that helps you just to again quieten down your mind. So come into a quiet mind again. Real as quiet as you possibly can. And if it's noisy, then be really okay with noisy. There's really no right nor wrong. You might want to just come back to your breath to support you in being present. Soften in your face, soften your mind. Your jaw very slightly open, and have your tongue just resting on your palate, the base of your palate. And if it is available for you, just allow yourselves to drift off in that kind of twilight zone before that's in between wake and sleep. That yoga nidra's place where your wisdom is, where your insights are. We need these moments of quiet. And as much as you can, keep letting go. Just keep letting go. Keep letting go just as much as you possibly can. Never underestimate the power of just being. It gives us this real important nourishing time out. Keep practicing just letting go. Whatever you do, it serves you so well. And then just now, gently moving your hands and your toes. And you might just still want to keep your eyes closed, just moving your body a bit, maybe again feeling like you're a little bit of seaweed, just in this very gentle flow. And then coming to lie on the side. And then when you're on your side, give yourself a little cuddle. Give yourself a big cuddle. Feel that cuddle energy and give yourself some loving, give yourself some real appreciation for being you and all the work that you keep doing to be you and to be useful in the world. Give yourself a real big cuddle. And if you feel moved, that sensation of cuddle and kindness, you might want to share that to people that you know in the world that maybe need it more than we do. And share that little bit of light that maybe we have at the moment. Share your kindness. Share it with other people. And let's just gently open our eyes with a soft glare and come to seated. So namaste everyone. Thank you for joining me. The goodness in me honors, nourishes the goodness in you. Namaste. I'll try and unmute you all. Cool. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're very welcome. That was kind of cool. Maybe we should do that's a nice heart. Thank you. We should do the video again because I think it's really cool to see quite a few times. There's quite a number of people that couldn't do this time, so maybe I'll redo it in a different time as well. And we see where it goes. I look at doing something next week. I'd like to go through, if you're interested in joining me, looking at the skeleton. It may be slightly different from the way that you've worked with the skeleton before, and blend that in with some qigong, some understanding of the way we use our breath with the skeleton as well, and just lots of different modules that we can work with. So I'm not going to talk for a minute. It's really hard, you know, when you teach a class, it's really hard just to turn off. So anybody else want to say something? It's a bit late or a bit early.
Thank you so much for offering this class. I really thoroughly enjoyed it and hope to see more of that.
Cool. Yeah, come and explore more. I'd love that too. Thanks for joining.
And it's lovely how you are so open and offering us to be curious. And now I just want to go and do all my practice breathing the opposite way than I normally do,
Awesome.
just to see what it feels like.
Awesome, fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about, just being curious and doing things different. And that's fantastic, Kate. Cool.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. If you want to go, just go. That's all good. If you want to chat a little bit longer, if you want to connect with me, you can email me. I'll be able to see all the little chats because I wasn't able to look at those at the first time. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
I do regular yoga classes as well. You can join those.
See you on Tuesday. Looking
Okay.
forward.
See you,
Yeah.
Kat.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Paul.
You're very welcome. I'll see you again soon, eh? See who ends up being last. The hardcore people stay into the very end.
Woo!
Don't know how to turn your thing off, do you? I ban you. That's right, I'm going to go in a minute. How you doing, Anna? All good? Cool. Okay. So I'm going to sign off, everyone, unless someone wants me, let me know. I think, okay. Hey.
See you next week.
See you next week. Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Teresa. Okay.